Imagine the greatest king who ever lived. Not a king with a golden throne and an army, but a king whose very nature is light. Wherever he exists, darkness cannot. Wherever he speaks, things come alive. He doesn't just have love. He is love, the way fire is heat. You cannot separate the two. This king had a son, not a prince born later, but a son who existed with him before anything else existed. If the king was the architect, the son was the one through whom every blueprint became real. Together, through the son, the king spoke the universe into existence, stars, oceans, time itself, and then his masterpiece. The king created a garden world and placed two people in it, a man and a woman. But he didn't create them like furniture or pets or servants. He created them like children, and to every child he gave something extraordinary, something no star or ocean had. A lifeline and a free will. Picture the lifeline as a golden cord connecting each person directly to the king. As long as that cord held, they had everything: life, joy, purpose, peace. They walked with the king in the cool of the evening like old friends. They lacked nothing. The free will meant they could choose to keep walking with him or choose to walk away. The king wanted love, not robots. And real love always requires a real choice. But there was one rule, one boundary, not arbitrary, but like the edge of a cliff. There is a path that leads away from me. Do not walk it. Not because I forbid it to control you, but because that path leads to death. And I love you too much to say nothing. Now, in every great kingdom, there is always someone who resents the king. His name isn't important yet. Call him the serpent. He was once the most brilliant, most beautiful of the king's created servants. But brilliance without humility becomes pride. And pride, in him, became something cold and hungry. He had already fallen, already been cast out, and now he wanted company in the darkness. He didn't come with a weapon. He came with a question. He found the woman in the garden and said very quietly, "Did the king really say you couldn't walk that path?" That seems controlling, doesn't it? Maybe he's afraid of what you'll become. Maybe if you walk it, you'll be like him. Maybe he just wants to keep you small. It was a masterpiece of manipulation. Notice what he didn't do. He didn't say, "I hate you." He said, "The king doesn't trust you." He planted doubt, not in God's power, but in God's love. And the woman walked the path, and the man followed. In that single moment, the golden cord, the lifeline, snapped. Here is where people misunderstand the story. When the king said, "This path leads to death," he wasn't threatening them. He was describing a law as real as gravity. When you cut a flower from its roots, it doesn't die immediately. It still looks beautiful. It still smells sweet. But the moment of cutting is the death. What follows is just the unfolding of it. Sin, choosing the path away from the king, cut mankind from the source of life. And it didn't stop there. The serpent was cunning. Because mankind had been given authority over the garden world, when they chose his path, they unknowingly handed him the cord. The serpent became the new head of the fallen lifeline, a slave master who had never owned slaves before and intended to keep them forever. Mankind was now in slavery. Not in chains they could see, but in something quieter and more total. Driven by impulses they couldn't control, hurting each other, hurting themselves. Generation after generation, born into a kingdom under the wrong ruler, with no way to buy their own freedom. Because here is the cruel mathematics of slavery in the ancient world. Only a brother, a blood relative, could redeem you from slavery. A stranger couldn't buy you. A king couldn't simply decree it. It had to be family. Someone who shared your blood, who stepped in and paid the price themselves, and mankind had no such brother. This is where the story asks you to understand something about the king's character. He watched. He didn't abandon them for generations, through floods, through wars, through empires rising and falling. The king was patient, impossibly patient. He sent messengers, He made promises. He whispered through prophets and poets, "I have not forgotten you." A Redeemer is coming. People thought he had left. He was preparing because the king was also holy, and holiness is not cruelty, but it is absolute. The debt of the broken lifeline was real. Death had entered the world, and it had a legitimate claim. The king could not simply wave his hand and pretend the cord had never snapped. That would not be justice. That would not be love. It would be indifference dressed up as mercy. No, the debt had to be paid. But how? The king did the unthinkable. He sent his son, not as a general, not as a conqueror on a war horse, but as a baby, born in a barn to a young woman in a forgotten corner of the world. The son, through whom the stars were made, wrapped himself in human skin. He felt cold. He felt hunger. He got tired. He cried at funerals. He laughed at dinner tables. He held children. He touched lepers that no one else would touch. He became, fully, a human being, which meant, for the first time, mankind had a brother. One who shared their blood, one who had lived their life, one who had felt every temptation they had ever felt, and had not broken. Had not walked the serpent's path. The serpent tried everything. He offered the son kingdoms. He whispered the same old question. Does the king really love you? If he did, why would he ask this of you? The son didn't debate him. He simply said, no, and walked toward the cross instead. What happened at the cross is the hinge of the entire story. The son allowed himself to be killed, unjustly, violently, publicly, and in that moment, he absorbed the full weight of the death sentence that had hung over mankind since the cord snapped. Every broken lifeline, every generation of slavery, every act of darkness from every human who ever lived, he took it into himself. The serpent thought he had won. He had not understood the plan, because 3 days later, the son walked out of the tomb. Death, which had reigned over mankind since the garden, had met something it could not hold. The son had no sin of his own. Death had no claim on him, and so when he took on mankind's death sentence and survived it, he didn't just escape death, he broke its power. He defeated the serpent's greatest weapon, and because he was human, a true brother, he could now offer mankind a new lifeline. Not a restored version of the old one, something better, a lifeline not tied to human obedience, but to his own. The sun rose. He appeared to hundreds of people. And before he returned to the king, he left an open invitation, not to a religion, not to a set of rules, but to a relationship. Come back. The cord can be reattached, not because you earned it, but because your brother paid for it. The slavery is broken for anyone who wants to be free. The death sentence is lifted for anyone who accepts the pardon. The king's door is open. This is what Christians call grace, an unearned gift, offered freely, that cost the giver everything. The free will still exists. You can still choose to stay on the serpent's path. No one will drag you away from it. But the offer stands. Christians believe they are living in the chapter between the resurrection and the final ending of the story. When the king returns, the serpent is permanently defeated, and the garden is restored beyond anything that was lost. They believe the son left a piece of himself behind, his spirit, to reconnect people to the lifeline one by one, from the inside out. Not making them perfect immediately, but beginning a slow transformation, turning slaves back into children. They believe the king is still patient, still waiting, still hoping that more people will hear the story and come home. That, in its bones, is what Christianity is: a rescue story, a love story, and an open invitation.